Greece, a country where laid back is the law of the people. Great food, idyllic weather and scenery at every turn. This relaxing lifestyle is what brings in the tourists. But for the locals, the reality is very different. A country in chaos. Greece is in the middle of a meltdown. A corrupt government, rising debt, and regular protests is the picture painted in Greece today. Okay.
The EU, if I may say, my opinion is you cannot have the European Union without Greece, because Greece is, if I may say, the birthplace of secular democracy. So if you had the European Union without Athens, you have a motherless culture.
Okay.
Because the European Union is not simply a union of economics, of economies. It's a cultural union, it's a political union, it's a social union. So you have to see the Europe as a project, ongoing project, which is not defined simply by economics, but politics, society and culture. 3 years ago, Greece was going through a period of financial recovery and booming because of the Olympic Games and the aftermath of the Olympic Games. There was a lot of money, there was an affluent society, a society full of sort of cheap foreign labor as well. And now within the last 2 years, essentially not even 24 months, the whole system has collapsed, has imploded. You can see there's no money, there's no liquidity in the market. Actually, market for the middle class does not really exist. And you see that the atmosphere itself is full of, if I may say, anger, frustration, rage. The main thread of political democracy, which is trust amongst society and the state, has been severed and does not exist anymore. So it is a serious issue, I think, of the which proves the failure of the political establishment of the country, that failed to modernize economic functions, failed to modernize society, and created an artificial divide between the state and the social structures. And what you see, the instability exists because of the constant conflict between those two. Because if you meet the Greeks, especially if you go outside the urban centers where the state is very influence very obvious, you will see that you're dealing with people who are entrepreneurial, very clever, extremely, I would say, savvy in the ways of the world. There is a very beautiful Greek proverb: "The fish stinks from its head." The stench of a fish comes from its head. That is to say.
Say it for me again.
The fish stinks from its head. You know, that is the head, and then the whole body stinks because it corrupts. You know, it's corrupted. Corruption comes from from the government. That is to say, I think what happens in Greece is that, and that it was revealed that 1,000 Greeks have brought out of the country 600 billion euros in Swiss accounts. The Greek government knew about that since the beginning of 2000. They did nothing. The 10% of this in taxation would have solved the problem of Greece for the next 50 years, as you understand. 10% per year, right? That is to say 60 billion. it's substantial. But nobody touched these people. So I don't think that when a poor farmer in a remote island does not pay 300 euros for his taxes is the real tax evasion, right? Because the Greek political system, and that's the other thing, is you see this, because it's not, I call it in an article I published, an autocratic democracy. Whoever votes for the party which is in power gets certain perks and certain privileges.
What sort of privileges?
you can do whatever you want. You can build without paying taxes, without being exempted from all kind of bureaucratic problems and pressures that you have. So what happens in Greece? We have this clientelistic democracy. If the party you have voted, which you voted for, is in power, you can have everything you want, and nobody will persecute you or prosecute you because of the absence of checks and balances that we see there. So, obviously, this crisis, I see this crisis, if I may speak with a platitude, as an opportunity. Because these practices have become really obvious. And will be the best opportunity now to completely, wipe out all these clientelistic policies and create a modern, contemporary, functional democracy.
There is a lot of debate about the root cause of Greece's current chaos. But for the people on the street, what really matters the most is finding a solution, and soon.
This is what we have here in Europe. We have a monetary design that is unraveling. And the problem is that if you're caught in that monetary design while it's unraveling, effectively you sink, and you sink without a trace. We made some huge errors in the past, one of them being to accept the bailout loans, which were huge at high interest rates and came with string attached, that also called austerity, that effectively shrunk the GDP, the national income of Greece, from which these huge loans would have to be repaid. So that was a big mistake. Now that we find ourselves here, where we, in the mire in which we are at present, our only chance, the only thing we can do is do what we should have done 2 years ago. The effect will not be as positive, but nevertheless we still have to say no to more bailouts and to more austerity, and to put it to our European partners that this vicious cycle has to cease, it has to be broken, and that since we are at the most painful part of the cycle, we have the right to say no. Greece has a large number of homegrown malignancies, with tax evasion, with the state sector that was very cozily linked to the private sector in a quite corrupt way, an economy which never really recovered from the 1970s crisis and the collapse of whatever heavy industry we had in this country. It was an economy that had moved very far and very fast from production to services. So Greece was always teetering on the verge of the crisis in the last 20, 30 years. But the reason why you and I are talking about Greece now is not that. The reason why you and I are talking about this and why Greece is making headlines is because of the Eurozone. Because in 1999, 2000, a number of European countries decided to join monetarily their economies together by means of a common currency, but without having shock absorbers and various institutions beyond monetary institutions that would ensure that the large aggregate economy that was being created through this currency union could survive a major financial global crisis.
How long do you believe Europe has before the crisis reaches a head like you're describing? How long until it has to get its act together?
Not long. It may very well be that we are past the point of no return. I don't know about that. I don't want to believe that is the case, even though it might very well be.
Yes.
Europe is a very rich continent. It has deep enough pockets to finance this slow tragedy and to delay the inevitable for quite a long while. How long do we have before we stop it from being the inevitable outcome? That is another question, and my suspicion is that the answer is not very long.
Okay.
We'll be talking about weeks.
Okay. Really? Wow.
We're like weeks or months
Weeks or months.
before the point of no return is reached.
And what is the point of no return?
It is a point at which whatever we then do to redesign the institutions of the euro, the debt crisis and the banking crisis and the real economic crisis will be so large that the links between the different countries and the different sectors will break down irreversibly, and at some point Germany will have to get out.
Okay.